Hello and welcome to the football show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Adam Binney, a little bit of a different one today, joined by Alan Ruff, Alison McConnell and a rather crippled Richard Foster just recovering from surgery. I know what you're all thinking, where is Peter, where is the boss? He's currently off at Anfield for Liverpool versus Real Madrid tonight. We'll be hearing from the boss later on. He's sent us a little package over, but Ruffy, after 10 years working with Peter, you finally get a little bit of a change. You've swapped out the older model for a newer, younger and better looking one. Are you happy?
Let's not gloss this up. He's away in a jolly. That's where he is. I don't know what he's got in this package, but he's done there to be in the, what do you call the Beatles place?
He's going to do the tour.
He's going to do the tour. He'll be doing everything that's there. So no, I'm sure you'll do it.
You must have only got one ticket, did he, Ruffy? Otherwise he'd have invited you.
No, he has two tickets.
Oh, two tickets.
He has two tickets. I think he decided to take his daughter with him.
Ridiculous.
Yep, Zoe's in place of Ruffy down in Liverpool today. But before we get into the Champions League, into the Viaplay Cup final, into the Motherwell managerial future, we've got plenty to talk about. But first, we have another fantastic competition this week. As usual, this Lionel Messi jersey with the 3 stars, the World Cup winning jersey, is behind us, and we have a little competition for you to take part in. It's another fantastic competition from PLZ Soccer. You can win this Lionel Messi Argentina World Cup winning replica jersey by answering this simple question. Who did Argentina defeat in the 2022 World Cup final? Post your answers in the comments section below. If you want to double your chances of winning, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Good luck. Yeah, fantastic prize to win, Richard, the World Cup winning jersey from Lionel Messi. It was an iconic final, and I'm sure it'll be a very lucky person that gets their hands on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one, I've said it on this show before, Peter's always on it, I'm not one for collecting shirts of players I haven't played against, but that one in particular would be pretty special. Probably now in my opinion, now regarded as the second best player ever, because he's won the World Cup behind Brazilian Ronaldo, but in many people's eyes, he needed to win that World Cup to be named the best, and he did, and he was exceptional in the World Cup as well. And I believe he scored a 95th minute winning free kick the other night as well. So he's still going strong. But yeah, fantastic prize and one lucky winner. Yeah, great prize indeed. I've already been inundated with messages from friends asking if I can rig the draw. I'm afraid in this new position of power, I absolutely do not have the power to do that for any of my friends. We have a little quiz question for all of our lovely viewers today as well, and I'll read it to you guys. The question today is, who was the last Scottish player to score for a Scottish club in the Champions League? Don't give away the answer, but do you think you know who it is? No.
I think I might.
Think about it.
You think you got it? Mm-hmm. That's okay. Keep it to yourself, Ruffy.
I'd have to think about it. Thank heavens it's at the end of the show.
Plenty of time. We'll bring you the answer at the end of the show. Keep your comments coming in the comments section below if you want to, first of all, be in with a chance of winning the signed Lionel Messi jersey and also getting the correct answer for our quiz question. But of course, the topic on everyone's lips this week is the Viaplay Cup final taking place on Sunday between Rangers and Celtic. Both teams in fantastic form. Michael Beale unbeaten in 14 in his start as Rangers manager, which exceeds the unbeaten runs at the beginning of the tenures of Steven Gerrard and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, but equally Celtic in that period as well, Richard, haven't lost a game.
Yeah, and it's looking increasingly more likely that the only teams that will beat each other are the old firm. Rangers have been exceptional since Beale came in, but are they yet the level of Celtic? You know, I'm sure the game on Sunday will go a long way to either proving they are or disproving it. I think in the last Old Firm game, Celtic weren't at their best and still salvaged a 2-2 draw. I still think Celtic are favourites for the game because I personally believe they're a better side at the moment. But you know, like I say, this game will go a long way to showing us whether Rangers are at their level yet or still got a little bit to go. I suspect they've still got a little bit to go, but they can cause Celtic a lot of problems because they're a team in fine form and a lot of confidence.
Yeah, Richard made that point, Alison, that Rangers played well, Celtic didn't particularly play well in the last game. Rangers still managed to get a point. Do you think that will worry Rangers fans, the fact they played so well and Celtic maybe didn't, and they still didn't manage to win the game?
I don't know if worry is the right word. I think they'll probably embrace Hampden on Sunday. I think it's an opportunity to go and see just how good they are, what level they're at. I think Celtic have have gone up a gear since that game in January. I think they've had players come in who are a bit fitter, a bit stronger. They're back to their favoured central defensive partnership, which they had to wait. They had them available at the start of January, but Carl Starfelt hadn't had a huge amount of game time. I think he's got fitter, sharper. I think guys like Dyson Maeda have come back from the World Cup. They look very firmly in the mood. Rio Hatate, I think, has stepped up a gear. I think Celtic look very much just now like the team with the bit between their teeth. They really have the wind at their backs. Rangers have been far more solid under Michael Beale. I think you've seen a bit of fluency, a bit of momentum, but I think in a couple of games he's referenced the fact that they're just not where he would like them to be in terms of performance. I think it says something about them as a team that they're still eking out wins, that they've gone on this run. But I think if you to compare the two teams just now, Celtic look like the form team, but this is a test for Celtic as much as it is for Rangers on Sunday. Are they as far ahead as they think they are, as their supporters think they are, or are Rangers capable of going and giving a bloody nose? And you would have to say it's a cup final. Hampden's a 50-50 split, which is unusual now given what we've seen over the past few seasons, where one of them has to walk into the Lions' Den essentially and play in front of 99% of the away support. I think this is a very different proposition. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a fairly tight game. I think Celtic will win it. I don't know that it might be as comfortable as some Celtic fans have suggested. Yeah,
interesting point you made there. You said Celtic are in a better place, you think, now than that previous match. Rangers, on the other hand, struggling with injuries roughly just now. Malik Tillman, Ryan Jack, John Lundstram, all doubtful. Scott Arfield as well. How much of a miss do you think those key players will be, in particular Malik Tillman?
Yeah, I think Tillman will be a miss. He's obviously been very impressive in the games and the success that Rangers have had. I think the good thing for Rangers' point of view is they've proved in a one-off game they can compete with Celtic. I think going into the game, the manager will be saying to the players, you know, look what happened in the last game. You were about 2 minutes away from winning that game. That's a positive thing. I agree with Alison. I think Celtic have maybe got a more settled side. I think we could pick the Celtic 11, the Rangers 11. We might be missing 2 or 3 because he's got to make his mind up. And we don't know how bad the injuries are. They might be okay. They might be, a couple of them might be ready. So we'll have to wait and see with that one. But I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think 2 teams getting in on form. I think they're playing particularly well. They're scoring goals, and I hope we get a really exciting game. And the biggest thing for me is, let's hope we're not talking about VAR after the game, because you want this game to be decided on the ability of the 2 teams.
Yeah, we'll hope that VAR's actually working at Hampden this time. When I was there before at the semi-final, Rangers versus Aberdeen, there was a moment where we thought we were going to lose it. Interesting point, you said that you can almost pick the Celtic starting 11 now. I believe we've got the starting 11s on the screen from the previous League Cup final between these two sides, when Rangers and Celtic met in 2019. If you look at the Celtic League Cup side, the side that won that day, of course, won the cup, it's looking very different to what it does now, Richard.
Yeah, only McGregor. Forrest survives, but he doesn't play as often as he would probably like now. But McGregor's the only one there, and I think that's a decent side. But I think the Celtic side at the moment is stronger. I think they just attack with so much pace and aggression. They win the ball back so quickly. They just, it's like the big kid in the playground and the little kid stolen their ball, and he just goes, no, I'm not having this, and he goes and just takes the ball back off him, and then they keep it for so long. I mean, the possession stats against most of the teams are incredible, and they're playing so well at the moment, but I think it's a good time for both teams to play each other because both teams are in. Yes, I still feel that Rangers are a little bit behind Celtic, but they're in good form. They're playing well. They've got goals in the team, so hopefully it's a good time to play each other. But then Old Firm games, the form tends to be out the window. It doesn't really matter. It's who can, as Alison suggested, who can deal with the occasion, who can deal with the 50-50 split of fans, the size of Hampden, the intensity of the game. But as Ruffy says, let's just hope for a cracking game. No, although it kind of kills me a little bit in terms of the show I do discussing VAR, I don't want VAR to decide the cup final. You want it to be decided by quality goals and a real entertaining game.
Yeah, and when we contrast that Celtic starting 11, Alison, to that of Rangers from the same game we've got up on the screen there for you, if you look at that, many of the same players still playing. Alan McGregor's likely to be involved, Connor Goldson, James Tavernier, Borna Barisic, Glenn Kamara, Ryan Jack if he's fit, Scott Arfield if he's fit, Morelos, Kent. pretty much Hollander, because he's injured, and Arevo because he's been sold, are the only players definitely not going to be playing this one.
It's very interesting, isn't it, when you consider the time that's elapsed, and I think it maybe points to an element of being stagnant. I think at times, I think we spoke about this yesterday actually, about Rangers really probably have missed the boat in terms of cashing in on the likes of Alfredo, Morelos and Ryan Kent. I think probably the time to go and allow them to go, bring in funds that you then reinvest in the first team, and I think the recycling all the time and the freshening up of a side, I think that's quite apparent that it's maybe not happened to the same extent at Rangers when you have a look at that. I'm surprised. If you'd said to go back to 2019 and go through the team, you would expect to have some players still there, obviously Tavernier and Goldson, but when you actually see it written down, it's quite extraordinary how many are still there and how many still actually have an active part in first team duties when it comes to it. I think this is a Rangers team that in many ways is reaching the end of its cycle. I think there's a number of players who are all out of contract now this summer, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not they can go again in a game like this on Sunday.
Yeah, the manager Michael Beale has already spoken about trying to freshen it up, whether it be with the new signings of Todd Cantwell and Nikola Raskin, and in January he's looking to make more signings in the summer to get rid of that problem that of course that the players have stagnated roughly. I just want to go back to a point you made. You don't want this one to be decided by VAR, but if we remember the previous League Cup final in 2019, Jeremy Frimpong was sent off, Christopher Jullien scored the winner, which images after the match looked as though Jullien might have been in an offside position. That was a crazy game. If VAR had been involved that day, how do you think it would have turned out?
Yeah, I don't think the Celtic goal would have been a goal. I think maybe we draw the lines where it is. I think you could clearly see that in the movement, at least one or two of the Celtic players were offside before it went in the back of the net. And, it probably would have spoiled the game, because it was a good delivery into the box and we were talking about small margins. I was going to move that one about to ask Richard, because Richard's obviously been at Rangers. Do you think it's a good thing and a bad thing, the new two signings going into this derby game? As never been in it. I just remember Joey Barton going into his first Old Firm game and he was like lost in the headlights. I'm just wondering, I know they've got a lot of experience of playing. I'm just wondering, from being in the game, is it a good thing?
I think they've got enough players with the rest of the team who we've seen that have been there long enough that you can afford to have a couple who are new, who are fresh. For what I've seen from Cantwell and Raskin looks very good in the ball, composed, great range of passing. Cantwell, I still expect to see more from him in an attacking sense. I think he's maybe got one or two assists. He does create chances, but he's one of those players when he gets the ball, you can see that he's got ability and you just want him to do a little bit more. But that'll come. He hadn't played in a long time before coming to Rangers. Hadn't played consistently. So once he gets up to fitness, we've seen it with someone like Aaron Moy at Celtic, was kind of doing okay, but then once he came back and he got himself really fit, he's kind of flourished, and I expect Cantwell to do the same. But I would see no issue with playing the two of those. But it's you play Raskin in that deep line midfield role, very, very important role, because Celtic's midfield are so good. Do you want someone who's tried and tested, in Ryan Jack, who you know is going to win you tackles, who's going to break up Celtic attacks, or do you look for someone who is probably going to be a bit better on the ball and spray the passes around? But whether he'll get the time to do that, I don't know. But I would like to see them both in the team. I would like to probably see them go with two sitting midfielders as opposed to the one and the two, just to try and counteract the Celtic midfield. But that's why I'm sitting here in Michael Beale's where he is. He's the one that picks the team, and he'll feel whatever side he picks, they've got a chance of winning the cup. Yeah,
so we've spoken a little about the 2019 League Cup final, but there was another famous one back in 2011. Richard, I believe you were in the Rangers. Well, you were at Rangers at the time, you weren't in the squad.
No, I wasn't in the squad because I sat on the bench for Aberdeen against Alloa in a cup tie. I then signed on transfer deadline day for Rangers, but that made me cup tied. So, I could have. Now, many people on this show probably text in and say that had I been playing, that Rangers wouldn't have won it, and that may very well be true. But no, it was just unfortunate that I was actually watching it at home. My little boy was not long born, so I was watching it at home. But it was a great feeling for the lads, and they brought that back into the dressing room. But yeah, that was a very good cup final between two very evenly matched sides.
What was that like in the dressing room at the time? You said when the boys brought the trophy back. Was that strange being part of a cup winning team. Well, being part of a cup winning squad, but not a cup winning team.
Yeah.
Do you still feel part of it?
Yeah, I'm not saying for a second I would have started the final. Of course, I'm not saying that. I would have probably played in the rounds previous. I was actually down to play. I think Kilmarnock we played, and then Alan McCoy's phoned me just saying, "Oh, you're cup tied. You can't," which was disappointing. So, likelihood is I wouldn't have started the final, but I would have possibly been involved. But yeah, it's just when you're part of that squad. One of the things that Walter Smith and Alan McCoy and the coaching staff are very good at was making everyone included. It was inclusive. Because you had other guys who weren't in that squad just because they missed out because the squad was big. So they still would have felt as left out as I did, but still part of the squad in general. And I just felt that the management team were very, very good at including everyone and making it about the collective and not just individuals. But yeah, it was great when they win the game and they come back in the next week in training and stuff as a real buzz because for me. You're in football to try and win things, to try and be successful, and obviously when you win the cup, one of the cups in Scotland, it's a great feeling.
Yeah. Alison, what were your memories of that cup final? We've had the kind of famous or infamous, whatever way you like, of El Hadj Diouf's celebration when lifting the trophy. I believe he done the Bruni or the Dioufy, whichever way you're inclined when he lifted it. It was a pretty crazy time. Yeah,
you go back and it's weird. It feels like such a different era, I think, when you're going back to that time and the rivalries.
That was a long time ago. I was 9. So.
To make us all feel ancient. But yeah, I think it's extraordinary how quickly football changes and progresses and how you become yesterday's man so incredibly quickly, which I think just reframes that 2019 team again for being quite unusual that there's been a real longevity with all these guys for so long. In terms of staying at the one club and still featuring so regularly. But yeah, I think you could go back through numerous games at Hampden, final games, League Cup games, Scottish Cup finals, semi-finals between Celtic and Rangers, and go through so many controversies and flashpoints. Some games I think maybe dip under the radar. I think you maybe don't always get the same fraughtness, but I think because it's become so unusual to have a 50-50 split, I wonder just if it adds a different dimension to the game on Sunday. And interestingly enough, there's not been a red card, I don't think, at one of these fixtures for the last 7 games, I think, or something, which might point to the fact that there's an onus on the football, that this is a football side that are playing, that you don't have the same physicality or the same pantomime element of a Scott Brown or someone, or a El Hadji Diouf if you're going back to 2011. So I just wonder if that means that there's one due on Sunday, if there's an inevitability about flagging that up, that then you maybe have 3 on Sunday's game, or whether it does suggest that these are 2 teams that are more focused on a football side.
Yeah, Ruffy, Alison's talking about the pantomime as the Old Firm derby on occasion. A few years since we've been given a red card in the final. You don't want it to be decided by VAR. You've already said that, but do you miss that sort of needle between the two sides? It seems to have been lost since the 50-50 split is gone.
No, you don't mind a bit of needle and a good hard challenge or something. It's the pantomime stuff you don't want, and that has happened on numerous occasions. Players, I've never played in a Rangers Celtic game. I can imagine the tension. I can imagine if things aren't going particularly well against you, and you want to take a wee something for somebody to remember, and it gets out of hand, and all of a sudden you get a red card. I agree with Alison. I think the players respect this game a lot more now. I think there doesn't seem to be many people in either side who are going to go out and have vengeance at any time. I hope that's not true. I hope that's not, because sometimes players like to stamp their authority early on in these games, and then you're waiting to see whether the referee is going to let it go. Sometimes they get accused and they're getting a yellow card early on, and they leave it till later on, and it's too late. So I don't think it will be that game. I'm expecting a really, really good competitive game.
Yeah, we'll get Michael Beale.
Cut in there about probably less Scottish players playing in it now. It's maybe I'm thinking of the Rangers team, obviously in the cup final. McGregor, Whittaker, Naismith, Lee McCulloch, kind of fiery characters, Kenny Miller,
Barry, on occasion.
And then if you look at the Celtic side, you look at Scott Brown, and he seemed to do the job of 3 or 4 different men at the same time, didn't he? But no, so I don't know whether there's an element of that. There's maybe there's more kind of foreign players who have not grown up supporting Rangers or Celtic. It's not, it's not in their blood. It's not built into them. So then it does become more about the football, which is actually quite refreshing. Played in a game, played in one of the Scottish Cup replay, the one after Scott Brown equalised and celebrated in front of youth, and it turned, descended into a bit of a farce. Coaches arguing up the tunnel and referees getting pinned, getting their arms pinned to their side, and players getting sent off left, right and centre. So maybe Alison's right. Maybe it's more about the football now, which is very refreshing, because it's all the other stuff is just nonsense really. People pay and want to go and see a good game of football. They don't want to see all the other stuff.
You know what we've done, don't you? You know what we've done.
Just let the
jinx it. Yeah, absolutely jinx it. Do you agree with that? Do you think that the multiculturalism and having a diversity of more nationalities represented in these squads has perhaps, diluted the...
I don't know. I think sometimes you look at players that have been dragged into it. I think Michael Lustig stealing a policeman's hat and leaving Ibrox with his shirt practically, or Celtic Park with his shirt practically hanging off. I think sometimes it's just... I think when you have a succession of games, sometimes I wonder if personal vendettas bleed over into the next game, and there's a bit of individual duels going on. I do think just certain characters love playing to the gallery, just love the, hamming it up almost to their own support. And I think Scott Brown would be your perfect example. I think Ryan Kent might do similar at Rangers. I think there are just certain individuals and certain personalities who relish that side of it. And I think probably you're never too far away from a flashpoint when you do have a 50-50 split, when you have one shouting for and one shouting against, and if you've got a fairly contentious decision, then I think it builds an atmosphere of feeling as though something's going against you all the time, and then that creates a circular energy, if you like, between the crowd and between the players. And if you feel as though you're aggrieved at something, then I think that's when you start to see a reaction.
What's brilliant is both sets of fans feel that VAR has been against them. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top in that respect.
Yeah, as is the nature with Scottish football and both sides of the divide. But Alison, you were talking about personalities, so we can't get away from this without asking Richard about the main man, El Hadj Diouf. Now, he wasn't here long, but he was some character. You must have some sort of stories to sum up what he was like to play with.
No, he was the pantomime villain. He did put on an act. In the dressing room, he was a confident guy. He was well spoken. He obviously had played at a very, very good level. He knew he was a good player. He was coming to Rangers at the end of his career. He tended to slow the game down a little bit too much for the Scottish game, but he wasn't that guy you seen on the pitch in the dressing room. You could sit there and have kind of decent debates with him, decent discussions with him. And then it just crosses the white line and it just flips, and it was something that he would do to almost get himself going for the game. It's almost like he wanted to wind someone up so they would bite back at him, and that would give him a lift. It would give him a buzz. And in most of the games he played, and he done well. Like I say, there was times when he maybe slowed the game down too much for the Scottish game, but we know that it's 1,000 miles an hour. But he was an easy teammate to have, an easy guy to be around in the dressing room. He never caused anyone any problems. He got on with everyone, and there was no. I'd love to sit here and tell you outrageous stories of what he'd done, but he was just one of the lads. He just got on with it. He never behaved as if he was better than everyone in the dressing room. But when he went on the pitch, he liked to have that aura as I'm the best player on the pitch, and a lot of times he was. And a lot of the games he played in before he came to Rangers, he was. But yeah, he was a good guy. And like I say, I got on really well with him, but he got on well with everyone.
Yeah, we could talk about this cup final all day, and the four of us could have great discussion, but there are two men who are more qualified to talk about this than ourselves. Michael Beale and Ange Postecoglou were both at Hampden Park this afternoon for their manager press conferences. We have a clip from Michael Beale. Our man Blair Malloy was out at Hampden Park getting the thoughts of Michael Beale.
The same players playing together with real clarity allows them to go and perform, and we've not had everything our own way. The results have gone well, but this team's still got another big step to make after this game. So whether we're really happy on Sunday night or we're lower than a snake's belly, come Monday morning, everybody has to know that Rangers have to improve. We have to jump again another 20%.
Yeah, Ruffy, Michael Beale saying that no matter the result of this one, Rangers still need to find another 20%. Would you agree with that?
He's been saying that since he got there.
Yeah.
You know, he seems to know where he wants to take the players, and I think that's a good thing from a manager. You know, to set targets out there. It means the players know that there's a target they have to reach. But I think winning the game at the weekend, I don't think he'll be coming out with that statement, because if they win at the weekend, he's reached the target, and he's reached a target that the supporters want him to reach. You know, so the result, yeah, it's good that if they don't win the game, he's obviously going to keep going, you know, and we're seeing that transition of new players that are coming in, but I think a win at the weekend would just have him not making statements like that.
No, not at all. Finally, just before we move on, I've got to ask everyone for their predictions for Sunday. I'll start with yourself, Richard.
I think there'll be goals in the game, and I'm going to say 3-2 Celtic.
Move along the couch, and I'll stay out of it because this is my debut and I don't want to upset anyone, so move on to Alison before I end my career.
I think Celtic will win it. I don't think it will be particularly comfortable. I think it might be quite tight. I'll say 2-1 Celtic.
Yeah, well, since I'm here every day right up until Friday, I've got a better chance to change my mind 3 times before we get there. So
you're going to pick a different score every day?
At this moment in time, I think, as Richard's touched on it, I think they've got more match winners going forward. I think they're more exciting going forward. So I'm going to give them 2-1 now, but that could easily change by Friday.
Well, we'll see where this week goes, but yeah, Alan
5 different predictions.
Yeah.
You'll get one of them right come Monday next week.
He'd still get them all wrong. He'll be lucky to just remember what he said by the end of the week.
You're right.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on, of course, there has been a bit of a vacant managerial position at the moment with Motherwell following the sacking of Stephen Hamill, caretaker boss. Stuart Kettlewell has taken over in the interim, and Richard, off to a flying start, 2 wins in a row.
Yeah, it's a perfect job interview, isn't it? You know, I think he had said that you know the Motherwell board are going to get the chance to see him working. You know, he's obviously developed a relationship very quickly with the players. They've responded to what he's trying to do. I thought, you know, the game against St Mirren, it was about just getting the result. They never played that well. They just dug in, they battled really strongly, and St Mirren didn't play well either, and Motherwell came out on top. But against Hearts, I thought they were excellent. I thought they played really well, and I was actually worried for them that they weren't going to go in half time ahead in the game, because they just lacked that final bit in the final third. You know, missed passes, missed crosses, but then obviously to get the goal, Goss does really well, has a cracking shot to get the corner, then another shot and Abika puts it in. But I thought the performance was excellent. They've obviously clearly got a reaction. I think that the players knew themselves. We heard Liam Kelly coming out and saying the players had let Stephen Hamill down, and they knew themselves. Players tend to be honest for the most part. Eventually, so he came out, and the players knew that they were going to, regardless of who was in charge, there was going to be. You would have hoped there would have been some sort of reaction, and obviously Stuart Kettlewell's come in there. He's got them organised. He's got them playing some decent football, and like I say, it was a perfect job interview, because the board don't need to really take a chance with him, because they've seen him in 2 games and they can kind of start to see the way he wants to work, and they can start to see the players responding. I believe it's now in his court, isn't it, to decide whether he wants the job or not.
Yeah, Alison, just away from the actual speculation surrounding the manager, whether Kettlewell will get it or not, there's no denying there's been the new manager bounce, if you like, with Motherwell. They've been fantastic in their last 2 matches. Do you think they'll beat the drop? Do you think they've got the... I'm putting you in the spot here, I suppose, but have they got enough in their squad to beat the drop?
They should have enough. I think when you look at the quality within the squad, they certainly shouldn't be anywhere near where they are just now, but I think that will be determined by whether or not they can sustain recent performances. I think they were abject since the turn of the year. I think you've seen a big improvement, you've seen a big difference. I'd agree with Richard. I thought I was really surprised at the way Sunday's game played out. I thought they were excellent against Hearts. I thought tactically they had Stuart Kettlewell had clearly done his homework just to nullify the threat that Hearts had. And I think in terms of an addition, he will have to feel as though he's put himself very much in the driving seat for the job. For me, when you look at the bottom, I think the club right now that I would fear for is Dundee United. I think Dundee United, Kilmarnock, Ross County are the 3 that I would anticipate really fighting it out over the next couple of months.
Yeah, and we'll actually hear just now from current interim manager Stuart Kettlewell, who agrees with yourself, Alison, that there's plenty more to come from his group of players.
Whatever comes, it's hard to say. You know, it has been a really short-term fix. So in answer to your question, I do believe that there's players there that can keep going and improving, and spoke about guys in the injury room just now that can come in and add to what we've got already. So yeah, that all looks really, really positive. But the starting point has to be, how we started the game at St Mirren. Not even thinking too much about today, but how you start the game against St Mirren probably gives you that opportunity to try and go again.
Yeah, great start. We've discussed it, but Stuart Kettlewell, Ruffy, do you think he's the man to take Motherwell forward and eventually beat the drop?
Yeah, I think every time we sit here and talk about it, it's a results-driven business, and he's got 2 results. That'll impress anybody. It'll impress the people who make the decision. I've said it all along. I think it's experienced players. Any particular team should have a say. Whether the board take them aside. Things like the training, what's the difference there? You buying into the way that he's going to take you ahead, and if they buy into it, then it's a plus. But there was, as Richard said, there's a vast difference against Hearts. They all seem to be wanting to fight for each other, dig for each other, put their foot in for each other. But I think Blair Spittle summed it up at the end, that when you're on a run of no winning games, you get a feeling that nothing's going right for you. We're not getting any of the decisions, we're not getting any of the VAR decisions, the ball's hitting a post and it's going away and the other team's scoring goals. But the turning point for me at the weekend was Blair Spittle when he hits the post and the ball bounces right back to him. Yeah. That never happened to them in 10 games ago. And it's just that wee turning point that you can see. You always watch players when they think things aren't going particularly well. When things do go well, it's a collective. Everybody enjoys it, everybody gets involved in it, everybody wants to jump in each other, and that can only be good at any football team.
Actually, you think about it less. When you're playing well, and you're playing well and your team are playing well, you go on the pitch and it's almost instinctive the way you play. As soon as it starts, you start losing games, you lose form, you start thinking more and more, and you spend most of the time in your own head, and that never works out for anyone. And like you say, Ruffy, sometimes you just need that a little bit of luck, and that's the kind of the bounce that you need to kick on. Yeah, unfortunately, just on a little sidestep, we do have some sad news to bring you. Some breaking news that the Hibs chairman, Ron Gordon, has unfortunately passed away this afternoon. Our thoughts, everyone's thoughts at PLZ Soccer, go out to the family of Ron Gordon and send our condolences to them. Ruffy, a Hibs legend. Yourself, have you?
It took me by surprise. Tam McManus had told us he wasn't particularly well. But things like that, happening far too often. Particularly in football and at football clubs where he's very well liked. He went into the club, and changed a lot of things. A lot of American things come into the setup at Hibs, and everybody was buying into it. The team starting to play well. I think everything he's done since he came to the club, and it's just tragic news. Yeah,
really sad to hear. And once again, we'd just like to reiterate that we send all of our thoughts, wishes and condolences to the family of Hibs chairman Ron Gordon. Back on to Motherwell. Richard, with this imminent appointment, it seems, of Stuart Kettlewell, everyone's talking about him being the man that will take over Motherwell. Do you think there's almost a risk attached to that, the fact Stephen Hamill was previously caretaker boss at Motherwell, got the job on a permanent basis, and it didn't go well?
I think that would be the case normally, but with all respect to Stevie Hamill, Stuart Kettlewell's been a manager. He's been in the hot seat, he knows what it's like. I've worked with him. He understands the game, he understands players, he knows how to get the best out of players. Someone like Blair Spittle will thrive because he knows him, he knows what his qualities are, and he sets his teams up to try and I know this sounds stupid and why wouldn't every manager do it, but he sets his teams up to get the best out of what he's got, and I think he's good at working with what he's got. He'll know the Motherwell squad. He'd have watched him obviously all this season, but I think the very fact that he's already been in the he's dealt with boards, he's dealt with the media, he's dealt with players not being happy, he's dealt with injuries, he's dealt with all that beforehand. He suffered a relegation. Then he won a promotion. So he's ticking a lot of boxes in terms of his experience for such a young manager. So I don't think there's always risk with a managerial appointment, of course there is, but I think there's far less risk with Stuart Kettlewell than there was with Stevie Hamill because he has already managed in the Premiership.
You said you've worked with him. What exactly was he like as a manager? Because I've heard from speaking to some boys around the Motherwell setup that he is so intricate, so tactical with everything he does. he's got it right to a T.
Yeah, he obviously just loves the game. He knows the game. He's very detailed in what he does. Is a lot of his training sessions are thought provoking. It's not a case of here's a passing drill, go ahead and do it. You know, there are elements to that passing drill where players then have the autonomy to make choices, and the players around them have to react to those choices, which is probably a more modern way of training. Certainly in my career, that's kind of came in at the end, which, you know, that's what you do in the pitch. You don't have a set, I must play this pass all the time. It would become quite robotic if it did. So he tries to make his training game based and realistic and competitive. He likes to have that competitive edge. He was a competitive guy himself. He would sometimes join in and training before he got the managerial job. He was one of the coaches, and he would join in, and he's got that bite about him, and he'll give that to the players. That's a lot of what Motherwell were missing, was that bite and determination to not concede goals, and that was a big part of who he was as a player and what he was when he became a manager.
Yeah, Alison, what do you think the reaction from the Motherwell fans will be to this appointment? Because there was a lot of people before maybe a bit concerned that Stevie Hamill was the cheap option. It sounds like it might be something similar again.
Yeah, I think they'll be encouraged by the manner of the 2 wins that they've had back to back at a time when they just couldn't buy a win or couldn't get a result. I think ultimately your currency is winning games. I think if you do that, then you put any criticisms to mute. I think Ian Holloway was one of the guys quoted. I just think financially it was never going to be a realistic target.
Would have been great for us though. Imagine some of the lines you would get from Holloway on here.
We could have a bit of colour, but I think, you know, we could all go through our wish list about what we would like at certain points. I don't think it was ever a viable. He was ever a viable contender. I think. And I always think that if you give someone the job on an interim basis and they do well, it becomes very difficult to overlook them. Yeah. I think if you have it and you're making a success of it, players respond to it, everyone gets a lift by the fact that you're winning games, and I think it becomes almost automatic that you're walking into that job. And even just to go back to Neil Lennon, the second time that he got the Celtic job, something similar took over at a time. Brendan Rodgers had left. He took Celtic, I think, to Tynecastle that Wednesday night, got a result, and then before you know it, come the end of the season, he's been handed the job in the showers.
Yeah, it looked 2 weeks ago that everyone was writing off Motherwell. I think Kettlewell said it himself. We heard it on the show yesterday that there were certain people wanted to try and kick a club while they were down. But I mean, fast forward 2 weeks, roughly it all looks different. 6 points ahead of bottom club Dundee United. They are, I think, 5 ahead of Ross County, 3 ahead of Kilmarnock, and all of a sudden you're looking at a Motherwell side that are in a much better position.
Oh, they're definitely in a much better position, but they're not by any matter means, because everybody down there has got the opportunity when the split comes to beat each other. So I think the main objective was to get out of that bottom 6. Because the bottom 6 is going to be cutthroat. I think they are, even though Dundee United are where they are. That I think they've got players in there that could win against the other teams that are down there. So I think it's going to be an exciting split. I think it's close. There's nobody cut adrift. There's usually 10, 12 points away, so the rest of the teams are just worrying about the playoff place. But I think everybody that's down there now should be worrying about bottom and second bottom. Yeah,
we'll take a little look at the league table just now as well. As you can see, Dundee United currently bottom spot in 12th. Ross County follow them in 11th, Kilmarnock in 10th. Motherwell in 9th. That's really probably the only 4 teams you think will be in contention for relegation in that relegation playoff spot. St Johnstone likely out of it as they've picked up a little bit. Richard, who do you think's going down? Sorry to put you on the spot. I know you've played for half of the teams on that list, but
only 4 of them. I think I agree with Alison. I fear for Dundee United. I fear, when you watch them, the goals they concede, they get themselves back into the game at the weekend, and the second goal is just. It's just decision making, firstly from the goalkeeper, then from Charlie. But to be fair to Charlie, he's put in a ridiculous position. The ball's played to him on his wrong side. For me, it's about managing the game, and I think Stuart Kettlewell spoke about how well Motherwell managed the game against Hearts, and Dundee United never managed that situation. You've just equalised against St Johnstone. St Johnstone are, like you say, they're there or thereabouts. Had they not won that game, they would still be down there, and you concede the goal. you score the goal, and then you're thinking, right, and your goalie then passes to his own centre half, who's facing him on the edge of his box, and making those kind of decisions. I think they've struggled in the goalkeeping area since Seagrass left. I don't think Birigitti's kind of really found his feet or found his form. He's a goalkeeper who will come up with big, good saves at times, but then he'll make errors. I thought he was probably culpable for both the goals, and I feel that they've got Stephen Fletcher at the top end of the pitch, and that's it. They don't really have another recognised striker. There's a lot of onus on him, and if he's not scoring, they'll struggle. And for that reason, I think they'll be down at the bottom. I think Kilmarnock have got enough about them. I think Kilmarnock have got a bit of grit, determination. Derek's obviously a very experienced manager. I think they might avoid the automatic the relegation spot. And a couple of weeks ago, you're right, I was saying that Motherwell were going to join Dundee United in the bottom two, because the way it looked bleak. The players looked devoid of confidence. And they were leaking goals, not scoring goals. But now you look at it and you think, Motherwell won the last 2 games. Are they better than Ross County? Probably just at the moment. Ross County don't score many goals, which you flip to last season. They had great goals. Regan Charles Cook was the top goal scorer in the league. Blair Spittle was there with providing goals and assists. So it's a different Ross County this season, and I think Ross County and Dundee United will be the two that struggle. As much as it pains me to say it, obviously I was at Ross County, but I think not scoring goals. I think when you look at Motherwell now scoring goals, you look at Kilmarnock, they've got goals on their side, especially if Vassell's appeal wins, and they've got Armstrong playing well, so I think they've got enough about them, and I think that the two that are not scoring the goals will be the ones that struggle. Yeah, so
Richard, you're saying Ross County will take the relegation playoff spot. But
yes.
Alison, that spot seems to be forgotten sometimes. People always talk about who's going down, but if you look at the quality in the Scottish Championship just now and the way that those teams play in, and they're used to winning, 11th becomes a real worry. Would you agree? Do you think it could be Ross County to take that position?
Absolutely. I think I don't think any team realises that playoff. I think if you've had a poor season and confidence is down and morale is difficult and form has been stuttering, you've lost so much belief as a collective, and you're playing a team who are in sharp contrast to that. You're playing a team who've had a fairly successful season, so you have a meeting where two teams are in very, very different places psychologically, sometimes with very little difference within the quality of the squad. I think it can be fraught, I think it can be tense, and I think if you're a Premiership club and there's so much around that game, and financially the implications of sliding down and people's livelihoods at stake, I think they're the team that are shackled by pressure and the difficulties that entails. So I don't think anyone would relish it, and I think when you look at the top end of the Championship just now, I don't think there's much between the top end there and the bottom end of the Premiership.
Rafi, I would ask yourself, but you'll probably forget by tomorrow and change your answer, so I'll save that for Peter. But speaking of Peter, he's out at Liverpool versus Real Madrid. Or, as is the nature of this show, talking about Motherwell, now we're going to talk about two of the most famous clubs of all time. I'm sure Sam Cowan would like to say that Motherwell's a close third to Liverpool and Real Madrid. So here was our man and the boss, Peter Martin, out at Anfield today.
Thanks, Adam. Well, Anfield is a special place to come, but even more special when you've got a Champions League night and Real Madrid are the opposition. Yes, the 14-time champions are here to take on Liverpool, who've won this competition on no fewer than 6 occasions. The last time these two sides met was, of course, last season in the Champions League final at the Stade de France in Paris. On that occasion, Carlo Ancelotti's side came out on top with that 1-0 victory. It was a night where Thibaut Courtois denied Liverpool time and time again, and Vinicius Junior's only goal secured the 14th title for Real Madrid. Well, what about these two sides going into this match this season? Not been great for Liverpool. They're coming off the back of 2 consecutive wins, one against Everton and the other one against Newcastle. So a bit of form in a poor season for Jurgen Klopp's side. They still have hopes of finishing 4th in the Premier League. Whether they can do that, only time will tell. As far as Real Madrid are concerned, well, they're coming off the back of 4 consecutive wins. They are now the World Club champions, and they defeated Osasuna by 2-0 at the weekend. Team news for this one, well, it looks as if Darwin Núñez trained yesterday and will be fit to partner Mo Salah up front. As far as Virgil van Dijk and Andy Robertson, they'll have to be on top form to stop the likes of Luka Modric, Benzema and of course the aforementioned Vinicius Junior. It's a star-studded occasion. Can Liverpool rise to that occasion and get a good lead in the first leg of this tie? Well, to do that they really are going to have to be on top form. So here at Anfield tonight, in the shadow of the statue of Bill Shankly and Bob Paisley, can they reproduce the magic that defeated Real Madrid in the 1981 final? Well, who knows? Tonight, they're going to have to be in top form. The Kop are going to be in full voice, and we're going to be watching Liverpool against Real Madrid. I really do wish, Ruffy, you were here with me, but sometimes I've just got to take one for the team on my own. Champions League night, lots to look forward to. We'll also give you all the details of Tuesday and Wednesday's Champions League games across all our social media channels. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. And Adam, it's back to you holding the fort from Anfield. Peter Martin, Liverpool against Real Madrid. I cannot wait.
Yeah, thanks for that, Peter. But before we talk about that game, Ruffy, I've got to ask you, how is this fair? Now, Peter has gone to Real Madrid Celtic, he's gone to Liverpool Rangers, but we can't get him to go to Fir Park on a Wednesday night, we can't get him to go anywhere on a Saturday. He's happily sending me all the way up to Aberdeen on my own with all my camera equipment on Saturday without any means of getting there, but he likes to have a little jolly on a Tuesday night in Liverpool.
Well, unfortunately, that's what bosses do. They just look after themselves. And the only thing is, in this opportunity, we were over obviously for the Real Madrid game. I hope he's got somebody there to find him a taxi to get him back to his room because he was struggling over there.
Yeah, we've finally managed to get Peter off of the couch and out to a game. Not in his natural habitat for this season, but if we move back to the football, Richard, it's not been a great season domestically for Liverpool. Do you think the Champions League offers a little chance for a break to perhaps get, as Tam McManus was saying, some fans back on side? Do you think there's a little bit of pressure at Jurgen Klopp just now?
I think when you've done as well as Liverpool have done in the recent seasons, there's always going to be a downturn. There's always, you're asking players to push so hard all the time, emotionally, physically. It's very draining, and I think there's always going to be a downturn. There's always going to be a season where they're a bit off it. Now, they could come back this season and still finish in the top four. I know they're a ways away, but they're slowly picking themselves up. They're finding their form. But yeah, you're right. The Champions League is special. You're playing against Real Madrid. I think they're the most successful team ever in terms of the Champions League. They seem to have a knack of winning it. So it's going to be a hugely difficult game, but Liverpool have fancied a chance at Anfield. They've fancied a chance against anyone there. And you're right, this will probably, hopefully for Jurgen Klopp, refocus the players, because they're going to need to be in at top level focus tonight, because Real Madrid are a fantastic side. So yeah, hopefully for Liverpool, I mean, I have very little sympathy for these English teams when they complain that they only spent 100 million and their counterparts spent 150 million. No, boo-hoo to them. But this should be a fantastic game. The Champions League is obviously is the kind of pinnacle of football. So hopefully it's a good tie, and hopefully for Liverpool and their fans, they can come out on top. But I love watching these games because I'm just watching it with an open mind, and as long as it's a good game, there's good goals, then I don't really care who wins. Yeah,
there's no tougher test for Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp's side, because was it 13, 14 Champions Leagues or European Cups Real Madrid have won? 14, yeah, and they're the current holders, of course, and there's no one that recognises that challenge more than Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp.
So now we have these two results, and hopefully we can build on that. But we need to play a super game. We need to play two super games, to be honest, to get through. But I have no problem with that, because if you don't play your best, you don't have a chance. Real Madrid doesn't have to play their best and still have a chance, and that's a difference, and that's pretty special. But I can't wait.
Alison, Liverpool versus Real Madrid tonight. I'll put you on the spot again. How do you see this one going?
I think Real Madrid will win it. I do. I think they'll be too strong for Liverpool. Just based on performances of both of late, I fancy that Madrid will win the tie, and I think they'll win tonight.
And Ruffy, do you think the famous Anfield atmosphere?
Yeah, I think that'll have a lot to do with it. I think they have picked themselves up a wee bit. They're nowhere near where they were last year, but they've certainly got players in the team who can up their game, and I think the big players that they've got will. I think they'll get a draw, tonight, but I don't see them winning over there.
Yeah, Richard?
I agree with Ruffy. I'm always the optimist. I always want goals. I'm going to say 2 each. Draw, 2 each draw.
Yeah, we'll go for score predictions of 2 each.
2-1 Real Madrid.
1 each.
Yeah, plenty of Champions League football and European football across this week. We will have the fixtures on screen for our lovely viewers. Just now, tonight, we have Liverpool versus Real Madrid, Eintracht Frankfurt versus Napoli, then I believe tomorrow RB Leipzig and Manchester City, Inter Milan against Porto. That other game, Richard, tonight, people aren't talking about that as much, of course. Liverpool Real Madrid is the glamour match, but Frankfurt versus Napoli. Napoli, I think, in my opinion, are real contenders for this one. If you look at the way they've been going, 15 clear with 15 games to go in Serie A, they absolutely walked their Group A as well. You've seen them dispose of Rangers, Ajax and Liverpool. They've got to be contenders as well, surely.
Yeah, I think both of those things, the way they're playing in the league and the fact that they were so dominant in their group stage of the Champions League, I think, yeah. And you know what, if you're Napoli, you will be absolutely delighted that everybody else is talking about Liverpool and Real Madrid and all the other teams, Man Cities, because you just, as long as you can go under the radar and as long as no one pays you too much attention, the better. Especially when you're playing well and they've got a real confidence. They score goals. They play really good football. They've got, Italian teams tend to always be technically very good, but they play with such a pace and intensity. And I just, it would be really refreshing for someone like Napoli to go and win the Champions League as well, because we've seen Real Madrid win it for 5 of the last 7 seasons or something ridiculous, whatever it is. And we constantly we talk about Man City and Liverpool because they're British clubs, but it would be quite refreshing if they could go there. I mean, I think they'll be too good for Eintracht Frankfurt. I don't know a lot about Frankfurt. But I think the form Napoli are in, you've got to fancy them in that tie. But like I said, the longer they go under the radar, I'm sure they don't care, as long as at the end of the competition they come out on top. Yeah,
I might be a little bit biased for this one because I had the privilege of going out to Naples earlier this season to watch Napoli versus Rangers, and I was intoxicated by the culture of that city and everything about Diego Maradona and the religion that is football over there. Those fans are obsessed. Alison, never mind a Scudetto, what would a UEFA Champions League mean to the city of Naples and their fans?
Yeah, I think it would be extraordinary, and I think so many people, that the longer that's a reality, people get behind it for the very reasons that it's someone it's a bit different, one of the underdogs, not a perennial winner, not one of the big powerhouses of European football. And I think you find a lot of neutrals who will be cheering them on, particularly because they have done so well and they play a nice attacking brand of football. I think that they're easy in the eye, they're good to watch, and I think people are always encouraged by that.
Yeah, star man for Napoli this season has been Varicella, the Georgian left winger. Ruffy's been in scintillating form all season, and I can't believe I managed to pronounce his name correctly. By the way, I've been looking at that one all day, so that's about the first thing I've done right today. So fantastic. Ruffy, he'll be coming up against Scotland very soon when Scotland face Georgia. Is that a player you're worried about for that match?
Of course, I think we've seen him, all the way through Europe. He's the next big one. I think one of the bigger clubs will go for him as well. That seems to be the way. My biggest worry is Tam McManus said that they were 12-1 yesterday. And I looked this morning and they're 5-1. So I'm just wondering how much money Tam's put on them last night, because it's a dramatic drop in odds. So, no, I think we were all encouraged by the way they play. They're fresh, and I agree with Richard. It'd be great if somebody away for the 4 or 5 big ones would win it. I just worry that where they are now in the league is fantastic, but I just worry that semi-finals of Champions League football is something they've not been in, very often, and generally the big noises that get there know how to handle it. So I hope I'm wrong, because I would like to see somebody like that winning it as well. Yeah,
I mean, Victor Osimhen and Varicella have been in fantastic form this season for Napoli, and slowly but surely they're working their way through the odds. You've got shorter since you've said that now as well. Tam's stuck another 50 quid on them. Score prediction for this one? Start with yourself, Richard.
3-0 Napoli.
Ooh.
2-1 Napoli.
2-1 Napoli.
2-1 Napoli. Everyone in agreement with Napoli then. And of course, just to finish, I wanted to talk a little bit about some speculation surrounding Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou. I believe there was something in the Australian media today. A veteran Melbourne sports host, Andy Maher, believes that the Aussie will likely leave Celtic at the end of this season because he thinks he's going to go and take the Leeds job. Richard, do you think that's a possibility?
You know, you never know in football. I've spoken about it before. I spoke about it on here specifically. Why, apart from money, take money out of it, why you'd want to leave Celtic to go to Leeds blows my mind. And now I'm not saying for a second that Ange Postecoglou will do that or wants to do that. I just don't understand that Celtic. You're winning things. You're successful. You're playing in the Champions League. I think he's got the way they performed in the Champions League this season. They probably never quite got the results, so they missed a lot of chances in the early part of games, and then eventually the other teams were too strong for them. I believe he'll think that he's got unfinished business there. I think he wants to have his style of football, his brand of football in the Champions League because he believes it can be successful. So I would like to see him back at Celtic next year to try it again. But I don't get it. You know, Leeds historically, yes, they've been a big club, but they're not Celtic. You know, if you look at the fan base of the two clubs, the stadium, I just think that Celtic are a far bigger club, and I just, me personally, would never leave something like Celtic. I think if Celtic to go to Leeds, I think if you're going to leave Celtic, ideally you want to go to the top 6 in the Premiership. Now, is that going to happen? You hope so. If Ange Postecoglou comes back next season to the Champions League and Celtic have a really good Champions League and they qualify from their group, that raises the stock even further. At the moment, a lot of English clubs will maybe look, it's only Celtic, it's only in Scotland. But the better he does with Celtic, especially in Europe, the more his stock will rise. And I think if you're going to leave a job the size of Celtic, you don't want to go to Leeds. You know, you look at some of the players have left the Old Firm to go down south. Some of them have went on and done well. Van Dijk for one, but most of them don't. Most of them don't ever get beyond mid-table Premiership. And I, for one, never played in the Premiership, but I won't remember any of the times that I finished 4th in a league or 5th in a league. I'll remember the things that I won, and at Celtic he's winning things.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Ange Postecoglou's mind will not be on that. He's got a big cup final to focus on Sunday. We had, again, our superstar reporter Blair Malloy has been working extra hard to get us a little clip from this afternoon's press conference at Hampden. Here's Ange.
I don't know what it'd do for me. I mean, I know what it'd do for our football club. It would add another trophy to us. I mean, I don't, whether we won it last year or didn't win it last year is irrelevant. The expectations when you go into a new season at this football club is that you try and challenge for everything that's there. And what's happened the year before is, as I've said, on a number of occasions, that's either in your trophy room or in somebody else's trophy room.
Alison, Ange saying there that last year's League Cup final win is irrelevant, do you think? Would you agree with that, or do you think experience of winning these trophies is important?
I think it was very important for him last year. I think it was important for the club and for him in a personal sense, because I think it just launched Celtic into a new era. I think it might have been a different story if it had been unsuccessful. I think that win last December was super important for just what Celtic went on to achieve. But I take his point. I think you're judged very much, especially at a club like Celtic. I think you're judged very much in the here and the now, and he'll know that any currency that you have in the bank can evaporate very, very quickly. I think you saw that with Neil Lennon. I think you have to sustain success at Celtic. I think you have to be winning all the time, and I think regardless of if it's a poor outcome for Celtic on Sunday, the fact that you won it last season counts for nothing. So I think it's a case of going and trying to put down a marker for this term, and I think most people would suspect if Celtic win on Sunday, the door's open for a treble, and I think that's what he would privately have his eye on.
Yeah, so Alison, thank you very much for your comment on that. Just before we finish, we of course gave you a quiz question at the top of the show asking who was the last Scottish player to score for a Scottish club in the Champions League. Richard, any idea?
Kenny Miller?
Nope. Ruffy?
No.
Alison?
Callum McGregor.
Correct. Which game?
The group stage this season when Celtic were away to...
I'll stop you there. It wasn't this season. It was in 2017 when he scored against Bayern Munich. I believe it was an equaliser before they went on to win 2-1. The only Celtic players to score, I think, there was an own goal. Jota scored against Real Madrid. He also scored against Leipzig. And the only Rangers players, when I was doing the research for this one, Arfield did actually score this season, but he doesn't count because he's Canadian now. So if anyone got Callum McGregor, thank you very much for your answer and for taking part in the quiz. And that wraps up my first show as host, so thank you very much for joining me. We'll be back to normal tomorrow with Peter Martin, and I'll knock you back.
Yes, I'll be in. I think it'll be Hugh McDonald.
And Hugh McDonald. Yeah. Hopefully Peter can do a much better job than myself, but I managed to get Alison to turn up on time, so I'm not sure he'll be able to do that. Anyway, thank you for myself, thank you to Richard, thank you to Alison, and thank you to Ruffy for your audience this afternoon. Thoroughly enjoyed my first show and hope to see you again very soon. From all of us at PLZ Soccer, goodbye.